I think we'll stick around a bit on stream. There seems to be a lively discussion in chat, so I think
Yeah.
we'll stick around on stream for a little bit more.
A
Um,
minute of silence for Tier 3 Storm. They had to ban 6 cards destroyed entirely. Theoretico, not enough. They did not go far enough. Storm deserves to die even more. I hate that deck.
you're you're
There's no,
you're. I,
there is nothing more unfun than sitting down against either an Eggs or Storm player. There is nothing more fun. Unfun, I should say. There's nothing more unfun.
Okay, Civ 1D. Okay, so you say my Marvel deck is fucked. I'm a Marvel player too, and I was a bit worried when they announced this ban. But I think honestly, Marvel players, yeah, we're obviously worse off without Emrakul, but I think we'll do just fine. I mean, yes, we lose Emrakul. That sucks. We will no longer be able to have that big threat off of Aetherworks that we can also cast from our hands. But we also have Ulamog, which is such a huge threat. And not only do we have Ulamog, but we can also replace the extra copies of Emrakul with World Breakers, which are also really powerful. And also smaller. We can also go smaller with cards like what's that? What's that? Is it card in Kaladesh? Thopter Mage or whatever. Thopter Maker.
Oh, yeah, I know the energy guy, right?
Yeah, energy guy makes
It's like
Thopters.
Whirler Virtuoso, I think.
World of Virtuoso, yeah, which
Yeah,
has been
Whirler
seeing play a lot
Virtuoso.
too. I mean, that one's that one's been popular. You also play that tireless trackers and stuff like that. I'm not saying that's entirely ideal, but I think Marvel is an all right place, and I think Marvel will still survive as a pretty very strong, powerful deck.
Yeah, Pork Ninja, I definitely agree that Delirium is most likely perfectly fine without Emrakul. It does lose a certain aspect that the deck didn't have in the sense that Emrakul, was a 13/13 flyer, but I think the deck wins more often than not in the mid range as opposed to, a crazy top end.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Pork Ninja, you were here. Were you here yesterday or not yesterday when we were doing the review?
That was Friday. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. I remember that name. Welcome back to the stream. Glad you came back.
Um,
What is Marvel
Without
going to?
Emrakul, yeah.
I,
That's the question for you. What is
how
it?
many more times am I going to say this? We have Ulamog. It's not that big of a deal. Honestly,
Yeah, but
I honestly preferred Ulamog off my Aetherworks triggers a lot of the
Yeah,
time.
but Emrakul was a giant titan that you could reliably cast, or reasonably cast, I should not reliably, but you could reasonably cast in
Well,
the game.
when you
Ulamog, you
yeah.
can't do that.
Yeah, no. But honestly, I've had games when they go long enough, and when you crack a, this is a bit of a pet card, but I had that ramp land from Battle for Zendikar where you can pay 4 and stack it to put 2 basics onto. It's basically explosive veg on a land, right? So if the game goes long enough and you activate one, you get the 10 mana eventually, and I've done it where I just hard cast in Ulamog. It doesn't happen a lot, but it can happen. And you just bring your curve down a little bit with World Breakers, which are basically in the same ballpark as an Emrakul casting cost with the graveyard triggers, not triggers, with the graveyard types in consideration. Obviously not as strong as a Mindslaver effect, but putting down a 5/7 recurable threat that also exiles a land is very strong.
Yeah. The Overmaster. The reason I like Golgari Grave Troll, the ban, and more importantly, Wizards' reason for the ban, is that it is not, Prize Amalgam or Cathartic Reunion or Collective Brutality. It's not these new cards that were introduced that made Dredge, what it is. It is ultimately the Dredge mechanic itself. And Golgari Grave Troll, as cool of a card as it is on its own merit, that Dredge 6 is stupid. Dredge is just a silly mechanic. Because in a deck like Dredge, that's just straight up card advantage. And being able to Dredge 6 is absurd. I think it is a reasonable ban. I think it will hurt Dredge enough, but I think Dredge will probably still be a playable deck. We'll have to see.
Yeah, so a Civ 1D cleared it up. I was gonna talk about it, but yeah, Marvel cast it. So the Heretical said Ulam was kind of confused or misunderstood how Marvel works. Yeah, Ulamog is on cast, but that's why Aetherworks Marvel is such a powerful card because it doesn't just bring the card onto the battlefield. It literally casts the card, so you get all cast triggers off the card that you choose. So in the sense that when you when you get Ulamog in your top 6 and you choose that off your Aetherworks Marvel, you're also getting that cast trigger, which is why Aetherworks is just a nuts card. It's so powerful. Oh man, what a day, huh?
Yeah, very, very surprising to come home and realize that WotC has surprised us all, especially when I was expecting the BNR announcement to be next week instead.
Yeah, definitely. I was expecting it too. I was just like, I was actually on the subreddit this morning eating my breakfast, and people are like, oh, banned and restrict, like all these posts talk about the banned and restricted, banned and restricted. I was like, what are you guys talking about? It's next week. I was like, oh, banned and restricted update coming in 3 hours. Oh Jesus.
In response to the Overmaster and Civ 1D, Infect will still be a good deck. I think it'll still be tier 1. However, it makes its worst matchups, like against the Green-Black X decks, and any deck, basically with Bolt, a lot worse, since they're, losing not only a way to get to your few, because Infect has so few Infect creatures as is, getting rid of a cantrip that they used a lot makes it so it's a lot harder for them. They may have to be playing more Infect bodies, because sometimes as an Infect player you just don't draw your Infect creatures, or the ones you do draw get removed, and that's harder. Plus, it's harder to put your buffs into a guy to know when it's safe. It's hard to know when to safe to put your buffs into a guy and go for the kill. Mm-hmm. And losing Detection Probe definitely affects that. However, Infect still has some crazy turn 2 draws that they can kill people off of. I think the deck is still perfectly playable. It just hurts a lot of their matchups that were already bad for them.
I want to come back. I want to come back to this because I want to talk about this more. But I want to just address something here. So I should have mentioned this. I thought I mentioned it. I was gonna mention it, but I must have forgotten to. So the bannings officially take place on the 20th. On MidGo, they will be effective on the 11th. So right now, these cards are still legal in whatever formats they are legal in. But come the 20th or the 11th on MidGo, which is Magic Online. So come the 20th, these cards will effectively be banned. I think that is the release of Aether Revolt, so it'll coincide with the release of Aether Revolt, essentially. So that is officially when they're banned. I'll probably put that up on the YouTube description or somewhere so people don't get confused. But I want to go back to what you were talking about with Infect. So with Gitaxian Probe gone, what do you use to figure out when you're safe? Because how isn't it just is it a crapshoot now to dump a bunch of?
I think it's more of a crapshoot now. I mean, you don't want to be playing cards like I've seen one person just mention Surgical Extraction. You don't want to be playing subpar cards like Surgical Extraction to get the same effect. I think honestly, if people are really looking for,
you can see the hand technically.
Yeah, you can see the hand, and as well as the deck. But I think options like that are subpar because there's not a cantrip on Surgical Extraction for obvious reasons, and really, what Infect truly needed cards like Probe is to help draw into their so few Infect creatures. So I think Infect will either start running more Infect creatures, or they may start running cards like Serum Visions to help them draw into them. I do not know. Serum Visions to me kind of seems unlikely since it makes the deck so much slower. I am not, I'm by no means an Infect player, so I'm not too sure. But losing Probe was definitely painful for the deck, to say the least.
Yep.
The Overmaster, do you actually play Amulet? That deck is so hard to play. It's interesting how many lines of play that deck has, but I could never understand it.
Is that Amulet Bloom?
Yeah, Amulet Bloom. I do think if the meta loses, if Infect and Suicide Zoo go down in popularity, I do think, decks like Titan Shift, red-green Valakut, will go up in rates to combat all the mid-range decks that may be popular, may or may not. Who knows? Yeah, Phyrexian Mana is a broken deal, but not all Phyrexian Mana cards are necessarily broken in the sense that Probe was just so broken in the fact that, you only had to pay that 1 Phyrexian mana. So if you paid the 2 life, you didn't have to worry about any other cost.
So yeah,
I honestly like Become Immense is a strong card, but I'm honestly fine with it, because one interesting thing about Become Immense is that Infect players had to basically rely on, they basically had to delve out their entire graveyard to play Become Immense, and by losing Probe, you have that much fewer cards in your graveyard that are cheap to cast. So that'll be interesting. I think the Probe does affect Become Immense in a way. So I won't say Become Immense is untouched. Maybe that's why you have the Kappa there. but we'll see.
what about Manamorphose? Somebody mentioned in chat. I'm not too familiar with a lot of modern cards because I don't play the format, but
Manamorphose, like, the problem with Manamorphose actually might be a good point. Yeah, actually I could see Manamorphose. Yeah, I could see that. I would assume my only issue with Manamorphose is that you have to pay it. You have to play it on turn 2. You can't play it on turn 1.
Yeah,
and that's generally where you're going to want to play. I don't know. We'll see.
Pork had mentioned just a bit, just as a comment, how there's going to be a lot of red-green energy.
Yeah, Theoretico pointed out that the point of Probe is that you play less lands. You can't do that with Manamorphose. That's a good point.
Yep. I don't know. What top tier deck is Manamorphose in Professor Modern?
I don't think it is in any.
What is this card? I want to know.
It was obvious. Well, I mean, it was in Storm when Storm was like really good, but I don't know what deck Manamorphose he's playing anymore.
Manamorphose. Oh, I've never seen this card. I thought I might have seen this card before. So this is 1 and a hybrid Gruul mana for an instant at 2 mana.
Grishol Brand? Yeah, good point.
You Crazy Pro, feels good, man. My face when I sold Emrakul's at 11:02 a.m. If only I could be you. Only I could be you. I want to dump my Emrakul as soon as possible. Or is
that when the ban and restricted deal was announced on Twitter?
Maybe. I'm not sure. It might have been announced at Twitter then. Yeah. I wish I could have dumped my Emrakuls.
The growing thing in the ice and blue-red kill fiend. Yeah. Does Suicide Blue play that card? I don't know. Like, the difference between Suicide Blue and just straight up Kiln Fiend is so weird to me.
Suicide Blue into straight up kill.
It's a very fine line, yeah.
Yeah.
I know they both play Thing in the ice usually.
Oh, you were playing. Oh, Crazy Pro dumped his Emrakuls on Midgo. Yeah, that would be a lot easier than in paper.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I'm just so annoyed. I remember I was always annoyed about prices right after Pro Tours because I was like, oh, maybe I'll invest in Emrakul. Oh, she's like $13. I'll wait after Pro Tour, and then she's like $30, and I'm like, oh, this is Avacyn all over again. And now
I know that feeling. I was like, I think Liliana, the Last Hope, could see play in Modern, and I was like, I considered pre-ordering it for like $18, but then I didn't, and it was a huge mistake.
Huge mistake. It's huge.
Yeah. At least it's not like a 4 of. It's just like usually 1 of.
Yeah, exactly. You know.
Yeah.
More. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll see how much return on investment I'll get on that. Ugh. God, it's dark here. I need to turn on some lights. 1 second.
Yeah. You have to understand which deck is best before finals, but sometimes that's really hard to do, especially if there's any upset.
Right.
And sometimes the deck that wins the Pro Tour is not necessarily the best deck in the format, just the best deck for that instance.
Do you remember my clutch Aetherworks Marvel buys?
Oh yeah, no, I remember the conversation exactly. You said I'm buying Aetherworks for the memes, and then Aetherworks ended up being a great
It
deck.
was the best night of my life until that deck fell into obscurity for some reason, and the price on Aetherworks Marvel skyrocketed, then quickly dumped back to its normal price. But
It
then,
is truly a roller
yeah,
coaster of emotions.
but then after it's come back as the king, right now, because right now Aetherworks is considered the top best deck. It's still the Aetherworks Marvel is around the same price as when it was like originally out, which is interesting to me. But whatever, I don't mind too much. I'm not in the game for finance. I'm in the game to play. But yeah, that was one of my better specs for sure. You know what? I'm gonna throw out a question, Chad. Does Chad think that maybe Wizards should have banned War? I had this thought actually. Maybe
Yeah,
Wizards should have
does
banned
anyone
something
think
else.
there should have been more bans?
Like, we should have just banned the entire Aetherworks list. Get all the Titans out of the way too, huh? And the Aetherworks Marvel. No, but seriously, does anybody feel like there may be something that might have been missed potentially? I'll give them time to digest. I know. I provide some very philosophical
Well,
and
there's a
thought-provoking
Twitch delay,
questions.
anyways.
What?
I said there's a Twitch delay,
I
anyways.
know that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm
Yeah.
taking into consideration. But I know how thought-provoking I can be at times.
Imlake mentioned that as an infect player, he thinks we should slow down and play more defensive. Will you play more infect creatures? That's my question to you.
It's so weird to think of an infect deck slowing down.
Yeah.
I mean, like if you're not winning turn 2, then why are you playing infect or whatever turn you win? I don't play modern. I should probably should.
In fact, honestly, while the turn two win is possible, that's not usually when they win.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially if you're against an opponent with interaction, it can really become like the Wild West of Magic, where you're waiting on your opponent to draw, on the removal. And that's where cards like Jataxian Probe really help, so that you can see if your opponent's bluffing or not.
So the popsicle stick brings up why not ban Marvel instead of Emrakul, and that might be that might be like a logical thing to come upon. It's like why didn't they ban the thing that made everything so stupid? I think not banning Aetherworks Marvel was the smart idea. I might be a bit biased here because I like Aetherworks Marvel, but when you banning Aetherworks Marvel is a bad idea because when you ban Aetherworks Marvel, you're basically telling people, stop, don't play with that strategy. You're bad for playing that strategy.
And one thing I'd also like to point out about Aetherworks Marvel is that it's one of the main showcases of energy decks.
That too.
And you want a deck that can like really showcase some of the key mechanics in terms of the new set, like Kaladesh. Let's see.
And also by taking out Emrakul, you take out two birds with one stone. Not only was she strong in the Aetherworks list, but she was also strong in the Green-Black Delirium list. When you ban cards, you don't want to ban a card because it's oppressive in that one niche strategy. You usually want to ban cards that are generally speaking played way too damn much. Like Smuggler's Copter. I remember when the first tournament came out for Kaladesh, and the top 8, all top 8 lists had 4 of Smuggler's Copter, and people were going insane. That's the kind of things you look for when you look for cards to ban. Cards that are really, that are so good that too many lists are running them.
I agree, Crazy Pyro. I think in terms of modern, I'd much more appreciate unbans than I do bans. But unfortunately, that doesn't translate to standard too. But in modern, I want to see more unbans.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Blue-red Dynavolt, anyone? I mean, I never liked that deck, honestly. It's alright, I suppose. It can be powerful. Stockpiling a lot of energy and constantly killing you slowly. It was a way for Control to kill someone, I suppose, which I kind of appreciated. It actually might get better, because there's a lot of synergies with Improvise and stuff like that are kind of geared more towards controlling playstyles. with stuff like Metallic Rebuke and stuff like that. So maybe a Dynavolt Tower might see a resurgence.
We've talked so much, like in terms of modern, like bans, like in almost a negative light. So let's talk about like something that's coming out in Aether Revolt. To you who play modern, how do you think Fatal Push is going to affect the format in terms of Sultai and Esper decks? What do you think is going to happen there? I agree, Theoretico. Counterspell in modern, do it. Find a way, Wizards. Find a way. But I would rather not have Counterspell in Standard. I think Counterspell is a little too strong for Standard.
Keep that filthy blue shit away from me.
Oh man, I can't remember the card. What was it? It was in Dragons. Like when you revealed a dragon, it was basically Counterspell.
Basically.
What card was that? That card was
Was it
silly.
Silumgar's Scorn?
Yeah, Silumgar's Scorn. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, Counterspells and cons were a lot better. I remember Disdainful Stroke. That was pretty good. Killed my rhinos. Counterspells just haven't been the same since.
Yeah. Brainstorm is absurd. That card is so silly, especially when you factor in the fact that not only is it what it is, it's also a blue card, so you could pitch it to Force a Will, which almost makes anything broken. The level of versatility you have with that card.
So the Overmaster says that they should have banned Top and Legacy. I've heard that statement. I've heard that sentiment a lot. It'd be interesting if they did ban Legacy. Does that kill Miracles?
Oh, Top? If you ban Top,
that kills Miracles.
Yeah, that kills Miracles. Yeah.
It's probably a good idea because then you can no longer lock people out with counter magic or counterbalance and stuff like that, and which is sounds I haven't played against it myself, but it sounds annoying.
Neither of us are really Legacy players.
No,
I will watch the format admiringly from afar, but dual lands are enough to scare me out of it.
For sure.
Also, I have like no real local Legacy scene where I'm at.
Yeah, there is actually a surprising number of people that play older formats in my store. When I mean older, I mean older than modern. Yeah, which is interesting. Yeah. You think Sultai Delver will be a thing?
It's possible. I mean, I
Thank you, Aztec, for that comment.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Sultai sees play. I'm not sure if Delver is necessarily the format it would be in. I mean, the question is like, what does it give Delver over Grixis? I think if you want to be playing a third color, I'd almost go more Grixis instead because you have reach for Bolt and stuff. Green just gives you Goyf, which I guess that's great if you're playing like Thought Scour and cards like that. I don't know. That's interesting. What does the green offer Delver?
Well, do you get Goyfs?
Yeah, you do get Goyfs, but
that's all I think of when I think of green.
Goyf. Yeah. I am really I play Junk. I play Junk or Abzan in modern.
Isn't Goyf like blue's greatest creature, like the best blue creature?
Yeah, the best blue creature that's not in blue. I play Junk, and I'm very happy to have Push. I'm thinking of going down from 4 Path to Exile to just like 3, and then slamming 4 Push, just because the main advantage Jund had over Abzan was the fact that Bolt helped remove the early game creatures, and now we can contest that.
No Striped Zebra had a pretty funny comment. Imprisoned in the Moon having Flash would have been the answer to Emrakul. Huge flavor win too, if it did. That would have been great. That's the enchantment from Eldritch Moon that exiled. No, not exiled. Turned it into a.
No, it turned it into a colorless land.
Yeah, colorless land. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That would have been funny and flavorful too. The thing about Goyf being blue is true only in Legacy. In Modern, there is no blue. Ooh.
Yeah, there is no blue.
I feel like there should be a blue, like traditional blue deck in Modern. In a quote unquote Legacy format. Oh, Legacy. I'm sorry, unrotating.
Hunted It's, welcome to the Magic community. Enjoy your stay.
Hi, Hunted.
I hope you find a format you like to play.
You know, if you're new, this is perfect. This person on the screen right now that I'm keeping up, because why not? I don't have the link to his YouTube page. This kind of sucks. But if you're new to Magic, I highly recommend visiting Tolarian Community College on YouTube. So that's a TOLARI. I'll just type it in chat. He's awesome for new players. He's got a lot of stuff about beginner decks and also accessories like deck boxes and stuff like that. And just a cool guy, you know. Help you learn more about Magic.
What card are you guys most excited for in the Revolt? Mine is obviously Push.
Mine's Push too. What would burn in Standard with Dynavolt Tower?
Skeletal, the idea behind the probe ban was mostly to get rid of a card that that just results in, like, probe accomplishes too much that Wizards doesn't think certain decks should get access to. It gives a lot of aggressive decks knowledge of your opponent's hand, which is something, you know, that they can use to know when to go all in. So decks like Suicide Zoo, which not only benefits from the, you know, the life loss, they also, you know, get a bigger indicator of when they should go in for like that Teamer Battle Rage and go in for the kill. Wizards thinks decks like that shouldn't have access to it, you know, as well as just being, you know, a really great cantrip. I don't think it was to primarily. I mean, I think in a way they wanted to tone Infect back a little bit to, you know, to dial it back, as well as Suicide Zoo. But I think it was just one of those things that if they ban it over the long term, you know, this, you know, effectively 0 mana cantrip with upside, that, you know, they'll that the format will be healthier as a result. So I think it is both for a long term viewpoint and for a short term viewpoint in dealing with, you know, Infect and Suicide Zoo.
I think also it's kind of a way to cull Phyrexian spells, ish.
Yeah,
Phyrexian mana is just dumb.
Phyrexian mana is really stupid, especially on a 1 mana cantrip.
So,
or 0 mana cantrip in that instance.
So in response to your question, so there are a couple of responses coming in. A couple of people have mentioned Baral. A couple of people have mentioned Yahenni's. Push, obviously. When I mean Yahenni, I mean Yahenni's expertise.
Yeah, all the expertise look a lot of fun because it's essentially, it's less the idea of card advantage and more the idea of you get insane tempo turns. And like the idea of expertising into another expertise is just it sounds fun.
I'm so worried as to what might happen with expertises.
Yeah.
Like, free spells is a danger zone.
Yeah.
The lousy's out. Tune in. Phyrexian mana is stupid. Tune out. Okay, come on. You gotta admit, Phyrexian mana is stupid, right?
It's pretty dumb.
I mean, maybe it would have been fine if like these cards were like overcosted, but look at Dismember. That's 1, 2 life, give something 5, -5. Oof. Okay.
Or look at Mental Misstep, which is an accurate name for development of the card.
Yeah.
Yeah, Theoretico mentions expertise plus fuse is broken but beatable. We'll have to see. Like, even if like Beckon Call is pretty silly though, like especially now that you have like a 3 mana enabler for it. You also have some redundancy with like Goblin Dark Dwellers. Oh, Floss. Phyrexian mana is fine! Alongside my favorite mechanic, Storm. They are the only ways to play good Magic. I hope you were saying that with a lot of sarcasm. It's hard. I mean, the all good in the good in all caps kind of brought that point clear to me, but you should have added a Kappa face, I think. That would have been more appropriate.
I think since we are kind of post-show kind of point of the stage right now, where we can kind of let our biases flow through a bit more. But
in response to Skeletal Peacock, I honestly think that banning in general, like Wizards has a lot of notions of what a ban should be for. It's just communicating it to the player base is a little bit harder to do. I think it is a mixture of a lot of things. You know, it is tournament attendance. It is like meta percentage. You know, there's a lot of criteria they have for it. Um, Rather than look at the reasons for the bans, what I want Wizards to communicate more is more dialing it back to what are alternatives to bans, like why. Like in the instance of modern, you can unban more things, which I think is the stance they should be taking. In terms of standard, why are they not taking a more aggressive approach into like introducing more answers in like a newer set or something? I do not know, but I definitely think it's mainly because Wizards has a lot of reasons to ban or unban something, and it's hard to communicate that.
I'm gonna assume I was muted for a little bit. I had to take care of something. Hopefully that wasn't an issue. Where were we?
Yeah, Elenders, a lot of what Wizards does is that they want money. They are in the end a business, and they do have employees to pay. If that is true, and they are a Hasbro subsidiary, and Hasbro is not always known as the most philanthropic organization out there.
I was gonna stop. I was gonna stop this discussion soon when we started losing viewers, but we keep getting more. So I don't know what to do with myself.
Well, Sneaky Homunculus, I do kind of agree that they probably should do a better job in communicating the bans, because some of this data is it's very obscure, isn't it? Like, where did you get this data? Like, you're saying a lot of people didn't like this card. Where's that proof? Is it just like internet response? How are you gathering that data? And I think that's something Wizards should communicate better, is how do they gather the data they have? Is it just off tournament reports?
I think Sam Stoddard
Oh,
came
continue.
out to say that they primarily get their data from Mitgo, which I think makes sense. That's probably easy to monitor considering it's online, and they have a direct connection to that.
Trapped 34. In my opinion, the banning Reflector Mage was partially because there's a lot of creatures, like when Reflector Mage came into the format, Hangerback Walker was one of them. There's a lot of creatures like Hangerback Walker which saw play that immediately stopped seeing play as soon as Reflector Mage became more popular. Is that Reflector Mage, really punishes certain creatures, especially creatures on the topper end of a curve. Like it's hard to play, this big 5 mana or 6 mana creature when this 3 mana creature can bounce it back to your hand and you can't play it until 2 turns later. That's, I mean, that's partially the reason I think. Also because I think they wanted to pick something in blue-white, the blue-white list.
Sorry about the noise in the background. Christ. No, continue.
See, the data is mainly gathered from MitGo. That's a good point. However, MitGo and paper, can be pretty differential, like in terms of attendance and stuff like that. Also, the player base in MitGo versus in store is very different.
If you want to listen to a more in-depth discussion, because we did talk about this earlier in our talk, I'll be putting this up. This will obviously be broadcasted and saved as a broadcast later, but I'll also be putting this up later on YouTube on our Talking Magic channel. So if you want, we go over every ban in detail. We talk about how they're going to affect the meta, how the lists that are using these cards are going to change. So, that'll be available to watch later on as well. So if you're interested, that'll be available to everyone.
Yeah, I agree, Skeletal Peacock. I think we just have to see how it works out. If it ends up being for the better and like tournament rates go up, and if on McGo more people are playing, then overall, the ban response was good. Things like this, we really have to see how they play out over time.
To local tours get treated like filthy tryhards. Huh, that's an interesting take on that. God, there's a lot of stuff in this chat. I love the discussion though. Glad people are very enthusiastic about these changes.
Is Green Black Delirium dead? No, I don't think so.
Don't be so worried there, buddy. It's gonna be okay. He's alive.
Yeah, it's gonna be all right.
Can we have a sitcom? No, it wouldn't be a sitcom. It would be a drama, wouldn't it be? Of Dex personified as people. We'll need an ER scene, right? They're rushing in Greenback Delirium from an auto crash, and here comes Aetherworks. No, it'll be Blue White Flash. Is the one that can beat him. She comes rushing in. It's like, is he dead? Is he dead?
Is he all right?
And now Aetherworks Marvel though, he's sitting in the corner going, it worked. It happened all along. As I planned. How without Emrakul? Man, you really like your caps, don't you?
Well, I mean, I'll let you handle that one.
Yeah, I'm going to say this again. We talked about this in depth in our discussion earlier, so if you want, you can check back later when this is put up in a broadcast, or when I put it up later on our YouTube channel, Talking Magic. But essentially, while Emrakul was an important part of Green Black Delirium's game plan, it was their top end, and it was the way for them to go over a lot of other decks. The rest of Green Black Delirium's core is just so strong and relatively left unchanged that they're gonna be fine, I think. Like, Green Black Emrakul was revealed in Eldritch Moon, so it was the same time as all the other powerful stuff. So I guess that's not a good example, but no, I can't say this. Before Emrakul saw a lot of tournament play in like Pro Tour and stuff like that. Green Black people found a Green Black Delirium list that wasn't running Emrakul for the most part, and was really strong. It had the usual suspects, Grimflayer and stuff like that. What was that Dryad that I don't think he's played that much anymore? That turned into
it's like Gnarlroot Dryad
Gnarlroot
or something like
that.
That.
Saw a lot of play.
Gnarlwood.
Something
like that.
Stuff like that. It's Ishkana.
Gnarlwood.
Although that one took a bit to catch on too. I mean, Ishkana has a big catch too as well. I mean, just dropping an Ishkana or two is power.
What I think is interesting about these changes in particular is Green Black kind of had like two ways to build it. Like you had the traditional mid range, but then there's also an aggro variant that like played Smuggler's Copter. I think the aggro variant, isn't going to be playable now that it lost Copter, and that you're going to have to resort more to the mid range style. And yeah, I honestly think losing Emrakul just
in the discussion too, in the main discussion, and I don't understand where you're coming with that, because I don't ever see lists.
I've seen aggressive variants. I've seen aggressive variants pop up a lot on MTG Goldfish of aggressive Green Black decks that would run like Copter. They would run like Verdurous Gearhulk as like their top end.
I think that attests to how powerful.
Like
is.
Sneaky Homunculus mentioned, Green Gearhulk kind of won a lot in this banning, because one problem is that you put your counters on something, then Reflector Mage would just swoop in and bounce it, and that's a good point. As well as it gives more mid-range decks more room to breathe now that Copter is gone. That aggressive decks don't have really access to that speed that Copter offered, and you can play more 5-drops reliably. Yeah, I agree. I think the Gearhulks in general are a lot better now.
Wujo brought up a great point that I can't believe I forgot. Green Black Delirium can still just drop a turn 3 Lily and just wait. I mean, protecting a turn 3 Lily is actually not that hard to do, and then ulting with her, it's just game over. almost usually. And so
Yeah.
yeah, Grim Dark Delirium I think is gonna be fine. I mean,
That MTG Wizard asks if is there any copter replacement. He just got into vehicles. I honestly think in aggressive decks, it's going to be a lot. It's going to be pretty difficult to
if you
replace
want an
copter.
aggressive vehicle, no. Heart of Kiran exists, but that is not going to be aggressive due to the fact that you're going to want a lot of walkers to support it. I think. Um, you run 4 Gideons. That's great. You're probably going to be able to find a good aggro list anyways, because 4 Gideons is ridiculous. I mentioned it before in the main discussion. I'll mention it again because I think it's important to mention it again and again. Why didn't they ban Gideon? That's the card that should have been banned.
As I said, Gideon is about the only money card in Battle for Zendikar.
It's all business. It's all business.
It is.
Yeah, but so long as you have those 4 Gideons, I don't think you're really gonna need a vehicle to be worried about. And honestly, maybe even without a vehicle, you'll be fine. Cause like without Smuggler's Copter, there's not really that much else that can be really crazy for aggro. I mean, what else crews for like 1 or 2 that's worth playing?
Yeah, Crazy Pyro, that is a good counter argument. Gideon is double white, and that it's not a card you can easily splash for. That is true.
He's not broken. I'm not saying he's broken. I'm just saying he's kind of always there, and you kind of know turn 4 comes around, your opponent plays a Gideon. Oh my, okay, he's played the Gideon, of course. And I think when a card comes to that point, it just like, isn't it a bit much? You know, like when we see full play sets of copters in every top 8 list, or Emrakul's constantly coming down over and over again. You know, I think Gideon is kind of in that criteria almost. And Gideon's been around forever. We know Gideon. We've had a long time to deal with Gideon, and still he's annoying. So, I mean, that's just my 2 cents on Gideon in the matter. I mean, somebody brought up Aether Spear Harvester. While that is 3/5 flying stats, it doesn't loot, and it also comes on a turn later.
Yeah, like
Wait, when does it come down? What mana is that? 3 mana?
It's 3 mana. Yeah, it's 3 mana. The problem with Aether Spear Harvester in a lot of decks that run Smuggler's Copters, like in Mardu vehicles, it doesn't allow you to pitch like the certain like graveyard cards you want to pitch, like Scrap Heap Scrounger. In Delirium decks, it doesn't allow you to pitch, certain decks cards you need to trigger Delirium. So I don't think it's not going to be a substitute in a lot of lists. I honestly think Aether or Harvester is more of a sideboard card. Maybe it might be main deckable in Standard. It's powerful enough that it can be.
Oh, this is interesting. But so the Oretico says he played against Harvester and it is garbage, apparently. That card looked very strong from what we could tell. We haven't played it with it yet.
We haven't tested any yet, but from my initial thoughts, I think it's mostly a sideboard card. I don't know. We'll see.
No, Wujo, you bring up a very good point. The whole KLD block has literally no answers to Planeswalkers, and this is something I've been preaching for a while now. We need more standard answers to walkers. Ruinous Patches does not cut it. Okay, we have Anguish on making too, but I don't want to bolt myself every time I want to kill a walker. It's kind of ridiculous how obviously Wizards wants to make walkers strong and wants walkers to be played more because walkers are gonna sell them packs. I just want a way to kill them.
Well, I mean, that's why we need a lot more burn that can go face, or at least that can be targeted at planeswalkers. And Shock is a step in the right direction. We need more cards like Shock, which are efficient, removal, that can also be targeted at planeswalkers. Yeah, I mean, we need more cards like that.
I mean, Voltone's mentioned Flame Lash if Gideon becomes the boogeyman, but that's a 4-mana instant. That's kind of meh to deal with. If you don't know Flame Lash, it was in the Planeswalker deck, so it wasn't actually in the official set itself, but it's still standard.
But it's still standard playable, yeah. Yeah, I agree, MTG Wizard. I would have liked to see Lightning Strike reprinted, or Searing Spear, or whatever form
honestly, 3 colors have great answers to planeswalkers. So what? Black, white, red? Is that what we're looking at right now? Unless I'm wrong.
Yeah, Whiskey Dingo brings up a good point. Chandra Torch of Defiance is probably going to be better in Standard, since Copter was a thing it had a hard time dealing with. That is a good point. We'll have to see. Oh, Alindris is the promised in the ban itself. Double Kappa.
I'll let it pass. I'll let that one slide.
Is WotC Tamiyo? Is Tamiyo a representation of WotC? Wizard just took Emrakul and put her in the moon.
This is too much lore for me.
This is way too much lore.
This is too much Vorthos. Oh, negate. Is that what you're talking about when you talk about planeswalker removal? Okay, fine. That's a counter spell. Okay, sure, that can deal with a walker. But you can't always respond to a planeswalker. Sometimes it's gonna happen. Sometimes you don't have the counter spell. You know. I mean, I like countering stuff. It's better than removing stuff. But the benefit of removal is that you can respond to something, or maybe later on when you need the answer, you can draw into it or whatever you want. You know. I mean, sometimes it's better to respond. There are times to be proactive and there's times to be responsive, you know?
Yeah, and the problem, like cards like Negate, well, Negate is pretty good in this format in the sense that, you know, people are playing Planeswalker, well, not Planeswalkers, but people are playing vehicles, which Negate also hits. You know, the issue with cards like Negate is that, yeah, they're powerful, but they are so limited. And as like if you're playing a control style game, sometimes it's hard to just, you can't slam like 4 Negates main board reliably. Like, you can put in your sideboard, but it's just like having main deck answers that can hit both planeswalkers and creatures is pretty nice. It's just,
yeah,
it's hard to answer both planeswalkers and creatures sometimes, and that's why cards like a Heroic Downfall and Theros were so good, is that flexibility was so nice.
I mean, now Ujo says that negates get worse with Copters being banned, but I never liked bringing negates against the matchups that ran Copter, because just like, okay, I hit Copter, but then like they're so creature heavy usually. It just like, ooh, this feels kind of bad. Also, 2-mana counterspell to respond to their 2-mana artifact usually isn't always the best deal, which is why I was excited for Fatal Push. It's a 1-mana answer to their 2-mana artifact, but now that dream's dead.
I think Lightning Strike or Searing Spear, yeah, that would have been enough to not ban Copter, I think. But I think Wizards has stated that, you know, they're worried about cards like Lightning Strike and Searing Spear just because of, you know, the power it gives to certain aggro decks.
No, Sneaky Homunculus is right. Is that it is right that the problem that printing 2 flexible answers results in play patterns that WotC doesn't like. But that's the important thing. I don't care what WotC doesn't like. That's not what I like.
Crazy Pyro, that card was disallow.
It's like, why should I care what WotC doesn't like? I'm sure they're catering to what the new players want, in the sense that they don't want counter spells, they don't want burn spells, or what have you. They don't want their big toys answered easily. I mean, I like playing gigantic creature. That's I love doing that stuff. But I'm also like a way to know that I can get rid of my opponent's stuff too, you know, because like if we're both playing a bunch of creatures or one gigantic creature and then we're just bouncing off of each other, it's just like, that's kind of like whatever.
Yeah, Crazy Pyro, in my opinion, no, Disallow does not count as Planeswalker hate, but I'm sure in Wizards' opinion, yes, it does. Oh man, them and counter spells, I don't know what's going on.
I mean, you can always disallow an ultimate when they're at ultimate loyalty, and then you kill the planeswalker.
Oh yeah, disallow on Nahiri ulti. That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. Yeah, I agree. Like Lenders, I agree that one of the good things about Standard is that they should have less bans.
So no, Landers
He,
asked.
he put,
Did you see that scale that he did? How much from 1 to
yeah,
10 does business count in these bannings from Wizard? Now, when you mean business, do you mean like how much attendance they're seeing, like how much revenue they're gonna receive from people playing Magic, so buying products and stuff like that, or more like I think that's mainly what it is, right?
yeah. I mean, in the end, everything Wizards does is about business. A lot of us would like to think it's about the integrity of the game, but to be honest, it's about business.
No, but if you think
And
about it, though, this was kind of hand in hand. I mean, yeah, it was
yeah,
kind of business orientated because attendance was going down for the most part because people were kind of sick of the way the meta was shaping up. But people were sick of the way the meta was shaping up,
yeah.
so they
Well, I
banned the
mean,
cards.
there is an idea. It is kind of like the chicken and egg argument. Is like, does Wizards care more about like attendance, or do they care more about making a meta that increases attendance? It's like in a sense, the objective to both is often the same. Um, I personally think that that attendance and the percent, like the types of decks that we're seeing a lot of play and that kind of triumvirate that was going around did influence their decisions. That we want to open up more decks for people to play. We want a wider meta. We want more cards from the newer sets, to be able to shine. And yeah, in the end, who knows? Wizards can sometimes be very uh, shaded in terms of how clearly they communicate to us.
Right. Hashtag Watsy staff.
Yeah.
Hey, Godspeed, that MTG Wizard. You send that copter home flying proud.
Yeah. Give it a proper burial.
One thing I'm kind of worried about though, it might happen. Kind of wary is them using these new bans to quote unquote shake up the meta whenever they feel like it.
Yeah, I mean, like in modern, it kind of makes sense for them to be able to do that. Although I don't agree with that approach. Once again, I take the stance that in modern, unbanning should be prioritized. But yeah, in standard, they definitely should not do that. They should allow the new set. Ideally, the new set is what should be shaking up standard. And with 3 months to go on, you have to ask yourself as developers, if the format is being figured out in 3 months, are we doing a good enough job? In terms of, are we providing enough head scratchers in the format? Are we providing enough pieces for people to figure out? Because if the format gets solved, the minute we have the first Pro Tour, that's a bad sign on R&D's part.
Yeah, true. Don't want to get the format solved too quick. That would be kind of problematic. Oh man. Hey, I just want to check. We are the 4th most popular stream on Magic, so that's exciting. Didn't expect that to happen. Thanks for everybody for tuning in and sticking around. This discussion has been pretty cool. Glad to hear a bunch of different people's opinions about this.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us, guys.
Should we wrap this up soon, or how much longer do you think we should go for? We've been going at it for a pretty long time. We'll field some more questions for a few more minutes, I think, and then we'll probably call it a night. Chat's been pretty lively so far.
Oh. Yeah, Ellender's, like, I would throw the counterpoint, like, were those decks created solely because of Kaladesh? Well, not solely because of Kaladesh, but mainly because of Kaladesh, or were they created mostly from Dragons of Tarkir and Origins rotating out? That's kind of the question. We'll have to see. I mean, once again, these bans are not something we can process immediately. We're going to have to give it a few weeks or even longer than that before we can finally see the facts. Sorry to hear that, MLG Knee Socks.
What happened to MLG?
He just showed up. We're sorry, but you'll be able to find this conversation on YouTube after we finish uploading.
Yeah, this will be archived on Twitch, and also if you go to our YouTube page, so that's youtube.com/talkingmagic, it'll be there as well. There's a link down below in the channel description. in the panels. So yeah, check us out there too if you guys want. So Landry says all decks that are created in Kaladesh. That kind of seems.
Well, I mean, he brings up a good point.
No,
they're decks that that didn't really see play until Kaladesh came out. However, I think it's more the fact that Dragons of Tarkir and Origins rotated out that really influenced the meta, because you had insane cards like Collective Company leaving the format. But we'll have to give it time. I mean, the only Kaladesh card they banned was Smuggler's Copter. So, so I think all in the end, this isn't terrible as in terms of what Kaladesh can represent. I mean, I don't think Aetherworks is dead. I mean, we'll have to see. But I don't think Aetherworks is dead. And that's like almost purely a Kaladesh deck, with an exception of threats.
Yeah, Elan just brings up another point though that I brought a couple times in our main discussion about how prefers one destroy target copter rather than ban copter. Yeah, I would rather them print more actively
and Fatal threats. Fatal Push was the card.
Yeah, Fatal Push was the card. Yeah, so yeah.
Too bad we didn't get to see it.
So I would definitely prefer Wizards, more actively try to pursue better better answers to these powerful cards. And powerful cards, they should still be printing powerful cards, but with the right threats to go along with the right. I keep saying threats with the right answers to go along with them. That way we get a balanced game. That way we can still play these fun, awesome cards without having to worry about these things being oppressive, because what's their fun of winning all the time? Actually, there's a lot of fun of winning all the time, but that kind of ruins the meaning of what I'm saying.
Yeah, Crazy Pyro, I'm sorry to hear that out of 24 decks, only 4 remain untouched by bans in your experience on Metgo. I feel sorry for you. That is an absurd number. Bannings truly hurt us all, which is why unbanning should be the precedent, at least in terms of Eternal formats, I think. Anus Dominator, yeah, Black Green Delirium loses a pretty big aspect in the sense that Emrakul was that nice top end. However, Black Green Delirium kind of wins a lot more in the mid range, though, so maybe it doesn't affect the deck too much. I don't know, but it definitely loses a certain asset, like a certain axis they could interact on, like that crazy top end that Emrakul is.
Go watch. If you want more in-depth discussion, don't be afraid to go watch our re-upload of this on YouTube, where we talk about all the bands in detail. We will print answers to Copter. They printed ban list. That's awesome.
That is true. The ban list was printed. I'm sure some employee at Wizards printed it out on some printer.
We got land destruction, bro. Have you seen Demolish? Listen, actually, you know what? I hope we don't get more good land destruction. Land destruction is annoying.
Land destruction is pretty unfun. That's why there's that one common card that comes out in Aether Revolt that taps a land instead. It's like a red card, like deal 4 damage, tap a land. I think that's the approach they're taking more of, is that instead of destroying lands outright, we're just going to tap them more.
Right.
Jamie, yeah, I agree completely. Unbans are a lot better, and that they should be alongside bans in Eternal formats. If you're going to ban something, you should probably unban something as well. Bring back Armageddon? No, cards like that should not be. No.
Everybody, Chortle. Ha. That's a good one, fellow.
Hey, if you want to play Armageddon's style decks, play that balance deck.
Thank you for the laugh. Happy Headstone. These bannings seem weird. The one I can maybe agree with is Emrakul. Do you think the others are preemptive to try to balance the meta?
The one that comes across as preemptive to me is Reflector Mage. In the sense that Reflector Mage suppresses a lot of creatures. There's a lot of creatures that can't see play just because Reflector Mage does that. So maybe Reflector Mage. However, all 3 cards were contenders in the 3 top decks. You had blue white spirits in there, or blue white flash, I should say. You have a green black delirium represented, and you had the aggro decks like Mardu vehicles represented. So I think Wizards was in a way trying to hit the three big contenders of the format.
Could have been a contender.
Yeah, contender. But I think that only Reflector Mage is the only one that really comes across as preemptive to me.
Yeah, definitely. Because of the new combo. Reflector preemptive because of the new combo. There are a few pros already saying it was broken. There was a broken interaction. Man, I'm assuming you're talking about the Saheeli combo with the cat. Tristan and I, we've had discussions about that combo before, back and forth.
I honestly like Jamie for the modern bans, and once again, like you'll be able to watch our in-depth conversation on YouTube. I think Infect will still be a tier 1 deck, obviously. Dredge may shift back into like a tier 2 deck, but I don't think Dredge overall is hurt that badly. They lose their biggest dredger, which is where rather than ban like Prized Amalgam or Cathartic Reunion, I think Wizards had the appropriate response in banning a dredger. And yeah, losing the biggest dredger makes the deck a lot less absurd. But overall, I think the deck can still function fairly well. Whether it'll be tier 1 or tier 2, we'll have to see. But I do not think the deck will fall past that. J-Rod the Titan. Saheeli combo is with Felidar Guardian, which is a card in Aether Revolt. You -2 Saheeli, targeting the Felidar Guardian. Felidar Guardian blinks Saheeli, and you keep repeating that process. And all the guys have haste. All of the Felidar Guardians have haste. And so you basically attack your opponent. It's a lot like Splinter Twin, except Felidar Guardian is, sorcery speed aspect, where Splinter Twin had Deceiver Exarch, which is instant. But they're similar, and it's kind of eerie how much like Splinter Twin in a way that you curve. Like you can curve Saheeli into Felidar Guardian.
Oh man, ourselves, I don't know if you're joking or not, but we have no idea how good that combo is gonna be.
Yeah, and in my opinion, the main downside to Saheeli combo is the fact that it requires you to play Tricolor, and we don't know if the options or the mana base will make it a reliable enough of a deck, because in the essence of being a combo deck, you have to draw into your combo as well, and you're also going to be fighting a mana base that won't cooperate with you as well. I don't know. I mean, I think it's powerful. We'll have to see, but it's not Twin, that's for sure. There's a lot easier ways to interact with it, and this is standard. The mana base is not as great as we would like. Yeah, I agree. Try is a pretty big downside. Yeah, and if the counters, but see, the thing about the counters is that if the deck plays a lot of counters, and it is gravitating more to control, the question is whether, the Saheeli Rai combo is enough to make the deck, or if that is a way to give, control decks a finisher. That's the question. Whether it's the combo strong enough to be a merit on its own, or whether it's just simply a finisher for control decks, we don't know yet.
All right. I think we're gonna call it for that. I'm gonna thank everybody for joining in. I'm glad. I'm really thankful for everybody for joining in on the conversation. I'm glad we could have this discussion, and I'm also glad everybody is so enthusiastic about these banned and restricted update changes. I mean, it affects everybody, and it's good to have a discussion about it. If you want, you can follow us here so you can be notified when we're gonna have our next stream, and you can also click the link below to go to our YouTube page, where we upload everything that we stream at a soon enough later day. Hopefully, I'll get this up later tonight. And thanks for tuning in. Bye.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys.